Hello everybody, this is cyberclone Alpha here with another video for you today. I'm here with OC Nerf and he is here to show off his number 300 long shot. So OC, what was your inspiration for building this blaster?
My inspiration for building this blaster is just really mainly the love that I have for springers and long shots in particular. The biggest inspiration probably for this one and almost every one of my other long shots is pointing to the fact that you don't need to buy a kit necessarily to get good performance out of a blaster, if not better performance out of a blaster. That there is still a point to entry-level Nerf where you can go to the hardware store, buy what it is that you need, and make a really good blaster by yourself. That's, I think, a big inspiration for me, and I hope that it inspires others to do the same, not necessarily pay $200 for a kit, that you can go purchase some parts in the hardware store, make something yourself.
Yep, it's great. Yeah, building stuff yourself is always fun. I tried building something with a kit for the first time ever recently and it wasn't as fun as building my own internals. What materials did you use and why did you use them?
So I went with a sleeper breach, which means I've used brass for the internals, the main parts of the internals. I'm going to go over kind of what I used from what I can recall. Also some things that have changed, but a sleeper breach in essence being your standard bolt rebarreled to accept 9/16 brass, which will then sleeve over your 17/32 barrel. So it's using brass as the main material for the bolt and the barrel.
Yep.
The plunger tube itself is about 36 millimeter aluminum that I purchased from Orange Modworks. You can also use a drain pipe, which is also about the same size, 36 mil.
Yep.
And it replaces the plunger tube for the long shot, which is around 35, tapers down to 34.
Okay, so just keep it consistently 35 or
30? Yeah, it keeps it consistently 36 across right now, the internal diameter, which does mean you do have to make some changes to your long shot parts because I am using long shot parts still. So I am using the stock bolt, which doesn't work at all with a lipless system, which is what it's going to be.
Yep.
And it definitely won't work with 36 millimeters. The long shot cup is probably closer to 33, just under 34. So what I did to that is I made 2 grooves in the cup to go ahead and add 2 thick O-rings so that it can create a seal inside of the plunger tube. And it does get a perfect air seal with that. The plunger head also doesn't quite fit normally, so I had to thicken it up with a little bit more Teflon tape underneath that O-ring until I got the seal that I wanted, which is a near perfect seal, intentionally near perfect seal. It still gets a good seal. It still holds air, but it intentionally does leak it slightly because I wanted it to keep moving faster rather than slowing itself down with a full seal.
Yep, makes sense.
So that was intentionally less than 100%.
Okay. No, continue, sir.
Okay. So the other parts and materials that I used in there were let's see, from the back to the front. The back has the internals starting from the back to the front. The back is a metal catch. I believe it's an artifact metal catch with an Orange Modworks metal trigger. Not completely necessary, but for 2 reasons. One, the stock catch for the long shot really does hold up pretty well. I haven't really had too much of an issue with it. So it is possible to still use that, but the metal one obviously will just have better longevity. And with the spring combo I have in there, it's really going to be important. The metal trigger, again, is for the similar reasons. It doesn't bow, it doesn't flex in longevity.
Yep,
so I've got those 2 things in there. The back area of the blaster shell behind the plunger tube is filled with epoxy resin and fiberglass tape. so that it kind of gives it a good support.
Yep.
The back cap is still the stock back cap, just the Mickey Mouse ears cut off. The plunger rod is an Orange Modworks plunger rod from their line, with about a millimeter of fiberglass on the front of the plunger tube for reinforcement. So there's no padding in the system either. It's quite loud, but there's about a millimeter of fiberglass in the front to give it a good solid protection in the front of that plunger tube. The back of the plunger cap is also another millimeter of fiberglass coned into the back of the bolt, which is 9/16 down to I believe I took it down to 7/16 brass inside. So there's an internal pusher down to 7/16 so that it's strictly, it's a air reduction, and it's strictly for half darts only.
Yep.
So it's a sleeper breech, which normally does full and half, but this is just half darts only.
Yeah, I guess there's not really much point in using full length if you're using a sealed breech system anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if I'm using the tighter 17/32 brass. I suppose if I went with a 13 millimeter aluminum, I could probably use some full length darts, but I'm not interested in that. So I just converted it completely to a short dart only sleeper breech.
Yep.
Which also allowed me to make another change to the front of the bolt area and the breech area, which is in a normal sleeper breech, you only have about 2, maybe 3 millimeters of overlap between the 17/32 and the 9/16. It's a good enough seal, and it'll do really fine, but it's not a great seal.
Yeah.
It will do really well if you're very careful with your brass. You'll probably still get a really good, almost 100, if not 100% seal. But what I ended up doing here, since it's only a half dart, is I moved the barrel back to the beginning of a worker magazine. So it's pulled back. Instead of an overlap of 2 to 3 millimeters, it's closer to like 12 millimeter overlap.
And that'll make a much better seal.
Exactly. So it's a much better seal. It pulls the dart back further. So we're reducing even more space into the system. And then the barrel itself is a unique barrel at this point, because not only is it 17/32 brass, but at the end of it, built into the barrel itself, is a 1 in 12 twist Merlin, which is a rifling system.
Okay.
So the end of the brass is rifled.
So you don't need a skull barrel on the end then?
Right, exactly. So it's all one piece in this specific case. I have an older barrel that will take adapters, but the one that I currently have in there right now is just one solid piece of smooth bore to about 3 inches of twist at the end of that barrel. And then the rest of the shell is reinforced with fiberglass in the important parts, like in front of the plunger tube, around the gate, just to keep it all solid. The brass is protected in, depending on which barrel I'm using, either 316L aluminum, which is 3/4 inch, or 3/4 inch 6061 aluminum. So it's well protected brass at that point.
Yeah, brass is quite malleable, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So to protect the brass and to protect anybody else that I'm playing with, obviously. So I think that's the powertrain, if I were to think of it that way, of the blaster itself and what I'm currently using.
Yep. Would you do anything different if you could do it again?
I will probably be doing it again, and what I'm already thinking of doing is expanding that plunger tube even more, and maybe changing something in the bolt that I don't think I've seen quite yet. Really want to reduce the dead space in that bolt even more, but in a different way than what I've done and what others have done. I really want to try to see if I can change the way that system works, really keep it optimized for half darts. I already have the tubing that I want to use, which is 40 mil plunger tube. so even bigger than what I currently am using in there right now. The spring load that I have in there is about 21 kilograms.
Wow.
It's a 18.5 turf spring plus a stock 2.5 spring of some kind. I think it's a Busby spring.
Did you accomplish a goal with this project?
I did. The goal that I had with this project was really to do something that is done, that people have done in the past. Having a 300 foot per second long shot is not new, and it is not uncommon. But I wanted to achieve one that can do that and do it pretty well. So this blaster with comparable ammo, so like cut down elite darts, would be doing anywhere in the 330s to 350s, and with the workers don't seem to, wherever I am, for whatever reason, where I'm at, worker darts just don't like being in brass. 9/16 brass. The newer worker darts do work better. Probably because they're glued a little bit better, probably because the foam is a little bit different. But the newer worker darts actually do work well. The other ones, it was useless. It consistently decapitated, or it would just not fire well. It was like a one and done. I'd put a worker dart in there and it would just decapitate it immediately.
Yeah, doesn't make good ammo.
Right. So the ACCs, though, at least held on their heads a little bit longer, and those would do a little bit over, just a little bit over 300 at that point. So they would be at the low end, maybe in the 290s, and the high end, they would be around the 310s, 315s.
Yeah, but they were a lot more accurate than the
still
elites.
met that goal. Right. It still met that goal. With the new worker ones, I haven't actually speed tested it just yet, but I don't think they're going to be at 300 either with the new workers. Again, that foam just doesn't quite work well with it. So I'd expect it to probably be around the 270, 280 mark with the new worker darts, just from what I'm noticing with it. The other change that I would make, so I would change the plunger tube. I'd make an attempt at a new way to do a bolt. I made the barrel interchangeable, so that I will definitely keep. And the barrel, I will probably be constantly tweaking. How much twist do I want? How much travel do I want? And all those other factors. I've already made, quite a number of Merlins to test. This is just the latest one, and there's going to be another one right after. So
that's awesome. What level of difficulty was this mod?
Brassing itself isn't particularly difficult, but the way I wanted to do it, just the care of trying to put it all together, plus the externals of the shell and the internals of the shell. This took me several months, probably almost half of the year. I mean, the paint job alone is I don't know, maybe 12 layers of paint, and each layer took maybe it was two layers a week. So it took some time just to wait for paint to dry. The integration of the top rail, which is the top rail I really like, but I don't like the fact that Worker's top rail was so poorly printed.
Yeah.
And I've had two of them now, and they were both the same poor quality of print. So that's the part that I least like about it right now. Because I wanted to make everything nice, smooth, give it a good finish. The integration of the top was further done with putty as well, so there's no seam line from the shell to the top rail. It's just a solid line. The blasters absolutely fit for the user, which is myself. I've modified the grip girth so that it fits me, the stock length so that it fits me. Just a lot of those tiny tweaks, the balance of it, where I wanted things to be. That took so much time, let alone all the research for the barrel itself and the twist of the Merlin. I probably made 4 or 5 different Merlins onto a different barrel before I settled on a configuration that I thought would work best, and then made one out of this new piece of brass. I've remade the bolt 3 times. So yeah, it's taken a lot. It's taken quite a lot of work. Like I said, even just the paint job itself took probably, a month and a half to 2 months of paint job. It took quite a while just to let things dry.
And
yeah.
Any tips for those getting into nerfing and high-powered springers in general and all
For springers, I would say don't be afraid to go brass breach it. It's not that hard. Get the tools that you need. A Dremel is cheap. You can get a really cheap one. You don't need to get the best thing out there. Get one that spins fast enough. You don't need to get a diamond cutting wheel for $30. Go grab some cheaper, cutting wheels. Break a few. Keep protected, and learn from it. You don't need to spend so much money to get the best things out of the box. Just grab the brass, work with it, grab the drill bits that you need to bore out what you need to do, and just get started with that. People want to say, which kit should I get to get started modding a springer? Well, if you want to mod a springer, then mod one. Buying a kit is just dropping in something new. It's a great replacement, and I don't think everybody needs to be a modder. But if you seriously are asking the question, how do I get started modding a springer? Well, mod one.
Yeah.
Grab some brass, grab some springs, and mod a springer.
Yeah, don't necessarily have to kit it out. Just
exactly
stuff yourself.
Yeah, nothing wrong with kits, but if your goal is to mod it, then mod it. That's kind of what I think about that. I've got the Omega. I've tried out the Artifact. They work well for whatever they try to meet as a goal. I just obviously, with the brass breach long shot build guide that I put together, plus the 300 long shot, they're just there because I wanted to show that you don't need them to build something amazing. And the time and the cost that I did for my 300 long shot is severely excessive of what you actually need to get a high performing long shot.
Yeah.
You just need the internals. It's very excessive.
Yeah, but that's the fun part about this hobby. Anyway, thank you, OC. See everybody. And I'll be putting his channel in the link down below in the description, and I'll see you all next time.